Hi, this is Stephanie Lafazanos. You've joined me here today on day 27 of my Tao Tantra Qigong challenge. Thank you very much. I've been practicing consistently for 27 days in a row, and I better get this video done because light is going. It's getting dark, so I'm a bit late making my video today. Thanks for joining me if you've been watching my progress so far. Every day I check in with myself in the morning to ask what my body, my mind, my heart, and my soul needs that day for practice. And then I give it to myself, and then I make a video and I share about how my practice was. So this has been a very amazing experience for me. So I'm going to share on today's practice. I woke up this morning and I felt a lot of constriction of energy flow on the left side of my body, which I considered to be my feminine side. And I am creating a process for you, but I went through my own process of inquiring about what that was about. So you can use this for a belief. You can use it to find out what beliefs are holding you back. You can use it to find out what a particular emotion is trying to tell you, what a particular pain in your body is trying to tell you. And as I tuned in to the left side of my body, I got the message that I was feeling, the feeling on the left side of my body was telling me that I have a belief that I have to serve everyone else before I serve myself, that I have to be at others' beck and call, and that my energy is ultimately not for me, it's for other people. So this is a slave mentality. And to help you understand where this comes from, I believe that many women have this issue and many men have this issue too. It's in our feminine side, which men have as well. But I know from a fact that many women have this issue. So I've been wanting to read this to you for quite a while, and this helps to illustrate the history of how we, our feminine, got trapped into this slave mentality and this belief that our energy is not our own. This means our time is not our own, and it includes all energy. All forms of energy are not for us, but they're for others. So this is by Leslie Temple Thurston. And the title of this is Collaboration Between Women Supports Global Change. So we have reached the moment in time where as many women as possible need to be made aware of the way in which they compete with other women. This phenomenon is hugely present in almost every woman in the Western world, just as it is with men. Competitiveness in women is usually fairly covert, disguised, taken for granted for. Competition is so second nature that even the woman herself is unconscious of the fact that she is doing it. Yet, if a woman is sensitive and has good interpersonal skills and cares about her relationships with others, she can often feel the tonality of that particular energy and respond to it, especially if someone draws her attention to it and makes her aware of it. This indicates that many women are ready to shift this issue now. The origin of feminine competitiveness goes way back roughly 6,000 years to the birth of patriarchy and hierarchy as we know it today. The peaceful Neolithic culture around the Mediterranean and Middle East, sometimes referred to as the goddess culture, was the first to be totally decimated by patriarchal tribes who invaded from the north. These invaders were the so-called Indo-European, who were patriarchal in their ideology and violent and competitive by nature. With their iron weapons and horses, over a period of 1,000 or 2,000 years or so, they destroyed the peaceful and almost egalitarian Neolithic village culture, whose women had held positions of leadership, status, and power in the community, especially as priestesses. The Neolithic men were mostly slaughtered, and the children and younger, more desirable women were spared death to be kept as concubines and slaves by the new lords of Europe and the Middle East. I have a past life that I remember being a sex slave. Maybe I'll tell you more about that another time. This long, slow, and anguished change was the beginning of time when women no longer had the means to support themselves through their own efforts. During the 7,000-year Neolithic era, they had crucial roles in the survival of the village. They were skilled in a variety of useful and life-supporting activities such as developing horticulture, food gardens, creating pottery, taming and raising cattle, as well as having babies, supporting one another in childbirth, and raising children collectively. Later, they learned how to weave cloth. Mystical skills were also very present, skills which we cannot truly understand today because of a lack of general understanding of what constitutes a woman's real power. Most of it has vanished from memory, deliberately suppressed and dismissed. After the completion of the fall of the Neolithic culture, women lost all their independence and creativity and became completely dependent on their patriarchal overlords, who were the dominating conquerors. And when the Neolithic culture was completely destroyed, the men from the north began competing amongst themselves for power, land, and women who were concubines or slaves. They created the manipulation that pitted one woman against another as a way of controlling them and keeping them powerless. Women of that era were facing the predicament of survival of the fittest and had to compete amongst themselves for protection, support, attention, and position in the lives of these individualistic men who were now fully in charge of their well-being. The old Neolithic structure where women had status and power died a violent death, and as the men from the north took over the land, the women had no choice but to compete amongst themselves for the favor of these men to ensure their own survival. The structure of life from those earlier goddess worshipping times gave way to a much lower status for women and became a breeding ground for competition, which survives to this day in our own still patriarchal culture and is now bred into the feminine as much as it is into the masculine. The women of today not only compete over men, but to some extent compete in the same manner as men. They have entered the patriarchal working world where it is survival of the fittest in the job market. Either way, the situation is still about women trying to survive and make their way in life, although essentially without the same privileges as men. Despite the fact that feminism has come a long way in the past 50 years, this pattern of women being second-class citizens is significantly in place. The world absolutely cannot heal as long as there is competition between men or between women or between men and women. Our now blighted natural world is gasping for air, especially as a result of the competition for survival between people, nation, genders, and the effect of human competition on nature and animals. It has to stop soon, and our Mother Earth is now asking us women to let it go. Actually, on closer examination, competition, which is so esteemed, now seems most embarrassingly sordid, small-minded, limited, and redundant. Since we no longer need to be using this behavior for our survival, we can be reborn into a new and far healthier way of sisterhood that calls for collaboration and caring. I doubt we were meant to be competing with each other forever. It was a learning experience for sure, but as we ascend, it no longer serves us. Going forward into the new paradigm of heart-centered consciousness will inevitably change this destructive attitude for our own happiness and survival. The fact is that women no longer need to be dependent on men and have no real reason to compete with each other. It is simply an old habit, as most of us know only too well in our souls. There are so many ways that this patriarchal period has been exceedingly hard for women that overall it has been a deeply scarring and soul-destroying experience. Yet there is another subtler and higher side to our feminine evolution. Over the millennia, we have also learned something from facing the humiliation we feel about being less than men. While this humiliation still lives deep inside us, we have been subtly changed. We have learned and are still learning that having having to face humiliation over the centuries has led us towards awakening the sublime and higher state of true humility within us. It has developed in us a huge well of strength deep within our souls, and as a result, we have become survivors and more. We have become capable of ascending into a higher dimension. We are ready. One of the problems around this significant change is that most women have a hard time seeing deep enough into their own unconscious to access this wisdom. So it sits there waiting for us to find it. And I believe this is because of the way that competition, in its compelling relationship to survival, takes over the surface mind and inflames the ego in the day-to-day struggle to survive. Yet this struggle is a samsara, a scar from the past, not real in current times, unless we make it so by believing it. And I think this is the key. Belief that a lot of us need to shift our slave mentality, and the belief that we need to compete with other women to survive. It is simply an ancient remnant of our precarious history that we can now let go of in order to take our place in a powerful, higher reality of heart-centered consciousness and mutual collaboration. The potential exists for a beautiful sweetness to develop between women as they embrace and acknowledge one another from the heart. Women are amazing beings, and yet their personalities have been subtly distorted by the propaganda disseminated about them by the patriarchal nature of this third dimensional world. If we want to rise up and do what our spirit is asking of us during this global transformation, we must let the patriarchal structure go. When this ancient programming is allowed to slip away, we will find that our relationships with one another will be clear, compassionate, fulfilling, and hugely empowered. This will also allow the empowerment of other women around us as we claim the truth of who we truly are now collectively. We will find that we have real supportive solutions to offer for the overall healing of the world. In the old order, women betray other women when they compete. This is completely unnecessary, especially now. There are numerous examples of this kind of thing happening everywhere, all the time. I see it all around me as I do my work with people. At the very least, it creates pain, alienation, and separation. And of course, at the grossest level, all betrayals lead to some level of war. I truly feel that now, more than ever, women are poised to let this blight on their souls go in a way that I do not see most men as yet being ready or able to do. But it is clear that competition is the source reason that keeps humanity stuck and is why the world is falling apart. I call on all of us to be scrupulously honest with ourselves and to try and see where we are doing this subtle and not so subtle competition with many or all of the women or men in our lives. It is the singular most destructive issue that can foul up a relationship, or at the very least make it painfully difficult. We are moving towards equality in this world, and if women can shift this, it may help men to do the same. Not competing will allow many things to come to the surface and enrich our lives. Things like our creativity, our happiness, our self-sufficiency, sense of self-worth will grow, and we'll find a more intimate heart connection between all of us in the most exquisite way. We will become capable of delighting and loving one another and being infinitely more generous towards each other. Our Mother Earth has been the playing field where greed has competed with survival as rape after rape has taken place. Let us wake up enough to no longer subtly rape each other or the earth in order to make ourselves feel as though we have some stature. Rather, let's stand together in solidarity, confident of our intrinsic value, and enshrine our beloved Mother Earth in our hearts. Draw a line in the sand for the patriarchy to shift. Why would we be afraid of giving each other credit, love, praise, and generous acceptance, and of receiving love too? We must seek and find the answers to these questions soon so that we can find a place of real loving acceptance inside ourselves, for one another, for life, and for a new future for this earth and all its people. Without women making this shift now, it's hard to imagine that our earth will survive in its current form. We are possibly nature's only chance of making it at this point. Now, as we enter a most severe critical period of unknowns and potential chaos for the world,